welcome to the Animal Training Academy Making Ripples podcast show, the show where we share the stories of the ripple-making extraordinaires with behavior nerd superpowers who make up the Animal Training Academy membership. I'm your host and one of the happiness engineers at Animal Training Academy, Shelley Wood from Drop Your Jaws Dog Training in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in the United States. We're absolutely thrilled and grateful to have you here with us today. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. This show is brought to you on behalf of the Animal Training Academy membership. So if you like the conversations in these episodes, then we want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people in the ATA membership, which you can find out more about at www.atamember.com. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalog of previous web class replays, plus a huge library of videos and projects to help you problem solve your training challenges. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group and forums area. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behavior geeks. On today's episode, we will be talking to David Thatcher. David says, "My life's motto is a Zig Ziglar quote. You can get everything in life you want if you will just help enough people get what they want." What I discovered from implementing this motto was helping others was what I wanted. So as an aircraft mechanic, whether building engines or working crash investigations, I found myself seeking other avenues to fulfill this desire. Even when I started a career as a journeyman electrical technician, that didn't fill the need, though both of these careers helped build a skill set that became very useful to my next journey. That next journey was down the path of training animals. Feeling the need to educate myself for this journey, I reaped the benefits from some of the best animal training schools, such as Karen Pryor Academy, Animal Behavioral College, Purdue University's Dogs course, Shed Aquarium's Animal Training, and LLA with Dr. Susan Friedman. These courses, coupled with Purdue University's Small Animal Behavioral Clinics guidance under Dr. Lesher and Dr. Ogata with behavioral issues, especially aggression in dogs, has helped prepare me for an animal training journey. The next turning of the page was becoming the director of training at the Dog House of Lafayette. Along with this, the opening of my business, Clicking at Curly's, with classes in fearful and aggressive dogs, tracking, trailing, nose work, and agility assisted me in finding the, quote, helping others I was seeking. These days, most of my time is geared towards volunteering at Providence Wildlife, found at www.providencewildlife.org. I have found a new love in working with birds of prey. I also share time being a member of a local search and rescue team, Hoosier State Search and Rescue, and they are helping me get my two pups, Birdie and Huck, trained for human remains detection. But number one on my list these days is spending time with my two grandest children, Alec, 14, and Azalea, 11. You can catch us playing board games, wordplay, training ducks at the local pond, and eating at their favorite restaurants. In closing, I do hold seminars on topics such as Portal, Portable Operant Research and Training Lab, nose work, or tracking and trailing. If you would like more information, contact me at shock7388@sbcglobal.net. David, it is wonderful to welcome you to the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shelley. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the forum that you and Ryan have set up, and I'm proud to be a part of that.
Well, I'm really excited to have you be a part of it, and I want to say an extra big thank you to you because we have had our share of technical issues trying to get this done before today and again today as well. So I appreciate your patience in working with me on all of that.
It's all in fun, right?
Yes. And it just means that we've gotten to chat a little bit more, which has been wonderful for me.
And me as well.
Well, I was hoping you would get us started out today by talking a little bit about some of the information from your bio. In your bio, you mentioned that your background as an aircraft mechanic and journeyman electrical technician helped you to build a skill set that has become useful to you as an animal trainer. Could you tell us a little bit more about what skill set those adventures in your past helped you to build that you use in animal training today?
Yes, I can. I appreciate this question because I hadn't really thought about my past and how it has helped formulate the things that I do now in animal training. As a aircraft mechanic, one of the things that is brought to light, and the public ought to be very comfortable knowing the safety factors that go into that, is the approximations that are put into place. When you build and assemble an aircraft engine, it is done in small increments. And when you get certain steps done, then you have an inspector come in and inspect each one of those little increments that you do, starting from laying out all the parts. As you lay out all the parts, and they come in and they recount to make sure that all the parts are there before you even start. So by the time you get to the end through each of the steps that they have laid out, there should be no parts left on the stands. If you have parts left over, then you probably have missed an approximation somewhere. And when it comes to my electrical background, the troubleshooting is the main focus that I had there. And looking at the inputs and outputs of machinery, that being computerized machinery, able to see the antecedents that are laid up before the outputs need to be produced to be able to make the machine do certain things that they have laid out for it to do. If it's not doing the outputs, then you go to the inputs and see which inputs are missing. So you know the antecedent arrangement hasn't been completed. So those two areas have actually helped in my being able to look at animal training and how it is set up from a behavioral aspect and a training aspect to be able to assist clientele.
That's really interesting to hear a little bit about that background and to see how you now connect that with animal training. I have to smile when you talk about the no parts left on the stands when you were working as an aircraft mechanic. As a member of the public, that does bring a certain level of comfort and assurance about air travel. But anytime I try to put anything together at home, it seems like I have parts left on the stand. Probably best I'm not in that field. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that background with us, David, and how it influences your animal training. I know that a big part of your life from watching you on Facebook and talking with you before and reading your bio, I know that a big part of your life is spent with those grandest children. I wonder if you could share a little bit there about how your animal training maybe influences your relationship with your grandchildren and about how your relationship with them influences your animal training.
It's a unique question in the sense that when it comes to my grandest children, they are definitely the apple of my eye. And I look forward to every opportunity that we have to get together. In fact, after we're done here, I will be going to sign up with my grandest son for a weightlifting adventure. So these sort of things, building in the relationship, has been unique from growing up. We played a lot of word games, as you had mentioned in the bio, and one of the word games that we do is swapping letters out as we're driving. Like speed limit, we'll take the S and the L and switch it around to lead spin, things like that, and just find what kind of silly things, quick to think things that we can do to help promote thinking, creative thinking at that. So I would have to say, as far as for animal training, my relationship with them is mainly for helping my creativity, also helping me keep feeling young and vibrant and moving forward and not kind of just getting lost in between, the pages, so to speak.
And do you find that things you have learned as an animal trainer influence the way that you interact with your grandchildren as well?
Yes. One of the things they've never heard from me is the word no. It's I've been able to remove it from my vocabulary. In fact, it's pretty difficult for me to say at times, even though when I know I should probably say it, not necessarily to them, but probably to corporations that call and want to sell me things. But when it comes to them, yes, they've never heard me say the word no, and I always try to build on the past things that we do. Like for my granddaughter, she loves to draw, and she takes the drawings that she has done here lately and that she's done in the past and has been redoing them so she can see her own personal growth. And that kind of goes back to the book that we read with Carol Dweck, and that being the growth mindset and how she is able to, instead of just seeing something and thinking about it in terms of being good or bad, she looks at it in terms of how much I have grown and the effort that I put forth into it. Then for my grandson, that same effort in things relates to his football. He started out as a freshman. In fact, he told me he didn't think he'd even play very much, being behind everybody. So we talked about the needed skill set to wherever he would be able to develop the kind of skills where he might be able to play. And he talked about all the little nuances that they had in the exercises for his football. And working with them, by the end of the year, he was starting games. So the growth mindset with effort and strategies has played out vividly with those two in my life.
That's really nice for me to hear about after having read the book, The Growth Mindset, in the Animal Training Academy community. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's cool to see how you're using those principles, or how you're seeing those principles, I guess, with your grandchildren too. But I wonder if you could maybe spend just a little bit of time for folks who aren't in the Animal Training Academy community, maybe telling them about the book, The Growth Mindset, just a little bit. And you lead a book club within the Animal Training Academy community to kind of promote discussion about different books that we choose to read. And that was one of them that we chose to read. So maybe tell folks a little bit about the growth mindset, and also maybe what that experience, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's a new experience for you leading a book club. So maybe talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you, if there's some growth mindset involved in that for you, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. The book itself kind of reflects everything about the book club for me. I've been a very avid reader for probably about the last 20 years. And being able to read and comprehend has never been an issue, but being able to read and then bring others into a discussion is definitely a new journey. And one, I still feel like have a lot of growing pains to do, but the growing pains that I look forward to, I analyze everything that I put on there. And there's times I put stuff in there for discussion and I scratch my head and I say, okay, well, lesson learned. Now we need to move forward from that and take a note. And the book itself talks about that right there, that learning from our struggles, learning from what others might consider failures, but as I have come to term as an opportunity for growth. And then developing strategies, slowing things down a little bit, and then moving forward until we can get back at that pace again. Now, the book itself talks about everything I just said there. Number one thing that we need to look at is our efforts that we're putting into things. And those efforts need to be put into strategies that we have developed. And when those strategies have times for or failures or things that didn't come to fruition the way we thought they would, that we step back and we change our strategies and use it as an opportunity for growth. Excellent book. I recommend it for everybody.
And how do you see all of what you just talked about applying to your journey as an animal trainer? Can you think of any specific situations in which you've been able to apply the growth mindset?
Yes, I try to utilize the growth mindset in every area of my life. A good example would be with the creation of the Hoosier State Search and Rescue Team. ATA members, Connie Swaim, Anna Dinky, Jimmy Maxwell, myself, along with other teammates, and I'll go ahead and name them if you don't mind, that being Emily Chester, Kelly Maxwell, Mark Meth, and Deb Beck. We've used the growth mindset to understand that there's been times that things just didn't go the way it probably should have went, that we thought they would go. And we took steps back and reanalyzed and got together as team members and mapped out the new direction under different strategies. So with the search and rescue team, it has panned out to be a huge book for learning and developing what is going to be probably, in my mind, one of the better search teams in the area. Hopefully it is anyway. As in other areas where I've utilized the growth mindset in the book is in starting with the wildlife sanctuary and Providence Wildlife Rehabilitation. Incorporated is the name of the company, and they have a lot of excellent people who are looking after birds care, and these happen to be birds of prey. And more importantly for me, it's been with the turkey vultures, and I've taken the growth mindset with them and developing strategies, and I've been really going very slow with this. I venture to say it probably will pick up in speed here pretty soon as they are in the process of moving. But so I've been utilizing mainly for observation and seeing what strategies need to be developed to create the types of behaviors that they are looking for cooperative care.
Well, it sounds like you use the growth mindset all the time and in every aspect of your life. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'll also say, just as an observer of the way that you communicate with people and the training that you share, not only does it sound like it, but I have seen that as well. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that with our audience. I would like to move now, if you're okay with it, and talking about some more kind of specific training related things. And for our next question, I am hoping that you could kind of talk us through maybe a recent training related challenge that you have experienced, and how you worked through the challenge and some things that you learned from it. I feel like this is going to take us back to some kind of growth mindset-y thinking as well. But if you could share about a training challenge, that would be great.
It's a very interesting question because as trainers, as you well know, we have lots of things going on and lots of things in the past that we kind of look back to develop new strategies and things. But since you said past, I'm not going to talk about the turkey vultures as of yet. I will talk about my encounter with Mackie, the Labradoodle, who, when we started, when she called me and said that she was needing some help with a dog, I immediately said, the one I hear barking in the background? And she says, yes, he does nothing but barks 24/7. And when I got over there for the consultation, I agreed with her. He barks 24/7. We developed some strategies because he didn't have any kind of foundation skills. So those things for him started with foundation skills, that he could learn that there were other avenues to acquire the attention that he was wanting or the other reinforcers that he was seeking. And developing those foundation skills took a long time. We're close to finishing up. We started last December, so you're looking at 5 months, and she's been excellent in following through with her side of things. In fact, I wish every pet owner was exactly like her, because she just is immaculate in the way she follows through with the exercises and things through the week. And especially since I make them so small in their development that it's hard to see the gains from them from week to week. So I do videos so that we can see those things. And that's another part of those strategies that we have developed to help be able to visualize the type of growth that he has. And to the point where we are at the process of weaning off some of the medications and keeping those behaviors that she enjoys seeing now in place.
Wonderful. Can you think of one or two specific kind of assignments maybe or strategies that you have given this pet guardian through the week or between each sessions, however long those have been, to work on with the dog?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We trained a settle to the mat where reinforcement was on the mat. However, the barking would start almost immediately if it wasn't consistent. So the first exercise we did is I took the relaxation protocol. That is, and I can't remember the name of the...
Is that Dr. Karen Overall, maybe?
Karen Overall, yes, that's her name. The relaxation protocol by Dr. Karen Overall. And I even broke those steps down even farther. So the first week was stepping 1 foot to the side and back and marking it and treating, and stepping to the other side, 1 step and back and marking and treating. And we did that for a whole week. And then we were able to build to 2 steps the next week, then 4 steps to the week after, until eventually we were able to go all the way around him. Took about 3 weeks before 4 weeks before we were able to make it to where she could just walk around him without him barking. So the strategies there and her efforts in and been listening to the strategies of just adhering to 1 step every day during training sessions. It's something difficult to do for even trainers. I was thoroughly impressed with the way she was able to build upon those little small increments from week to week.
And you mentioned that when you first talked to Mackie's human, you agreed that he was indeed barking. Mackie is, okay, you agreed that he was indeed barking 24/7. Can you talk a little bit about some of the progress and what kind of barking you're seeing or not seeing now? What kind of other behaviors in place of barking you might be seeing as well?
Well, right now we can get pretty much through all training sessions with maybe 1 or 2 barks. As far as the areas that we're building on now, from that is the door and the way he approaches people coming to the door. We've trained a settle to a mat with the doorbell being the cue. But we're still working on the barking aspect of that. So I have backed that part up to where the doorbell rings, reinforcement comes. So we're trying to change the association of what the doorbell actually means. So we moved the approximation back in step.
Thank you. And could you maybe tell us, I think what you just shared kind of answers this, but I'm guessing there would be other things as well. But could you share a little bit about what you have learned through this process, working with Mackie and his human? Sounds like one thing you learned was you needed to back up a little bit with the doorbell piece like you just talked about, but I'm guessing that you've learned some other things in working through this with them as well.
Yes, this is the first time I've seen a dog that barks as much as he's barked. and him being about a year old, it's been something that he's learned over the course of his life, and the only avenue he felt like he had to acquire the reinforcement and the outcomes that he was looking for. And, times I hear people talk about, my dog does this and doesn't and does this and this. And those sometimes you kind of go, yeah, really? What main thing I learned from this was, the owner probably knows what they're saying. And if nothing else, that's the way they feel. So they have a conditioned emotional response to the situation too. And that's the second thing that I learned from this was that not only did I need to work with the dog's behaviors and working with that I had a conditioned emotional response from the average pet owner that needed to be addressed as well too.
Those are great lessons. Thank you for sharing that. I really like what you said about the owner usually knows what's going on, or even if they don't know or have what we believe is an accurate perception, what they know is going on is their reality. The way they're feeling is valid, and we need to start where they are in working with them, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of that, and congratulations to Team Mackey on the success so far, and I'll be excited to follow along and see how this progresses as you continue to work with them.
I'll be happy to share.
Wonderful, wonderful. I can't wait to see more. Could you also share with us, this question has been a training situation that you are proud of, but Anat Shalev, who was recently on the show, shared about a training situation that she found reinforcing. So could you share with us either about a training situation that you're proud of and or one that you found reinforcing working through?
That's interesting. I see those as two different questions, actually. A training situation that I'm very proud of was going through KPA. And the pup that I took through KPA was a Cocker Spaniel who at that time wasn't diagnosed, but then later was diagnosed with generalized fear. And going into KPA workshops, I found out real quickly that his fear level, that even walking into a new building, it was something that needed to be worked through. The second or third workshop was where we had a couple of items to be trained, where you had two different things to train at one time. And I worked with, Clark was his name. I worked with Clark on a take it and a drop it. But I worked with that take it or drop it and ended up the behavior being a hot dog, which was also what I reinforced him with. So it was a whole hot dog. I had him take into his mouth, and then to drop it, he would spit it back out with not even teeth marks in it. Now, as the workshop started, he had a little bit of an incident where another dog got loose and got into his space and kind of pinned him down. So he could completely shut down for that workshop, except for one behavior, and that was to take that hot dog and spit it back out whenever I asked to drop it. So I was extremely proud of him that during a time when he had his whole world was in disarray, that he had enough confidence in me and in the bond that we had set that we could at least do one behavior in front of the group.
I can see why you would be proud of that, especially given Clark being so nervous about the whole situation and the thing that had happened earlier that day. It sounds like this was a training situation that Clark found very reinforcing, taking the hot dog in his mouth and dropping it out of his mouth for you in return for hot dog. So that's a great story. What about you said that question, you viewed that as two different questions. And I agree. I think it could be, it could be the same one, but it certainly could be different as well. So what about for you? Can you think of any training situations that have been reinforcing for you?
Yes, working with the turkey vultures. I also have Anna Dinky, another ATA member, working with me as well. And a few weeks back, they had moved the turkey vultures from the enclosure that they were in to a more open outside area. And while one of the turkey vultures was still very much excited for me to be there and we were able to work with, the other one was like, I just don't want anything to do with you anymore now. So when Anna got up there with me, and I do have some video of this, she started working with them, and I stayed off and outside of the arena because I just wanted to see how they interacted with her. And both of the turkey vultures were the way they were, and while they were in the other caged-in area. So then I went ahead and came on in and got into the back of the area and started videotaping. But the interaction between her and the one that was a little bit more timid, in other words, he wouldn't come near me or work with me. He was interacting with her as the other one was too, and that was highly reinforcing to me, even to the point that the one that was interacting with me, he jumped up onto the little bar that was next to me and walked up next to me and was standing staring me right in the ear. And I said to Anna, I said, well, take a look at this, and I don't have anything to give to him. So she walked over and reinforced him being right there staring me in the ear, then went back over and started working with the other one again. It was reinforcing for me to see these birds interact with her and see the joy that she got interacting with them.
That's a great example. I am just going to guess that a lot of the work that you're doing at Providence is pretty reinforcing for you. Could you share, and that may be one of them, but do you have any other kind of favorite moments from your work with the Wildlife Center?
Yes. Which one do I want to pick? One of them is with a falcon, that when the veterinarian was going through all the aspects of the falcon, then she allowed me to have it on my arm. And when I had it on my arm, it laid down on my arm like a chicken on a roost, and then it buried its head up into my chest like we were long lost friends. I just absolutely made my day. I did have had another one since that with a crow that's in there, and this crow just kind of flies around in its cage. But I walked over one day and stuck my finger in the cage, and it flew over to my finger and put its head on my finger, and so I started scratching it. So we now have developed a behavior. So when I walk in, he flies over to that spot and puts his head up against the cage, and I just get so tickled at him.
So are the animals at Providence, do they have some who are going to stay and some who are going to be released back into the wild?
And that is, yes, both. They bring in animals that have been injured and stuff for them to go through cooperative care to be able to be released back into the wild. Then they have others that for fear of their safety will not be released back in, so they are there. And one of the things that we're doing is developing enrichment for each. It'll eventually be for each one of them that are there, so that they aren't just, living out their lives in a cage.
That's great. It's really good to hear about all of that. And I am curious, I'm sure it is very reinforcing to work with those animals who are going to be staying at the center, and very interesting and fulfilling to think about developing enrichment for them as they stay as well. But I'm curious if you've been able in your time at the center to be a part of any of the animals who are going to be released back into the wild, and what that experience was like, if so.
Yes. they released a falcon back into the wild back in January, and I was able to be a part of that. We drove up north and had a nice little gathering at a church up there who allowed us to come on there and do the release from there. And the reason why we released from there was that was where it was recovered from. So we're releasing it back into the area that it had already known. And we had a little bit of discussion from Dr. Yeagley, and then she allowed one of the people to release the bird. She showed her how to hold it and how to release it. And when he released it, it went out about 100 yards, did a little swoop down low, and then went up out of sight, way up high in the air. And it was quite amazing feat to watch something going back into its natural habitat to participate again.
It sounds like a really beautiful thing to have been able to experience and be a part of. And kudos to you for your work at the Wildlife Center. And again, I'll be looking forward to hearing more about that work, and especially seeing how these enrichment products develop. That sounds really interesting to me. So I'll be interested in hearing more about that. And David, that is providencewildlife.org for people who want to find out more about that. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing everything so far. As we move now toward the end of the program, I was hoping that you might spend a little bit of time. I know you have some different training opportunities that you do that professional trainers might be interested in. So I was wondering if you might spend a little bit of time talking about, I think you do some portal workshops, Mary Hunter and Dr. Jesus Rosales Ruiz's portable operant research training lab. Did I get that right?
I believe you got it right, yes. Research and training lab, yes. Yes, I do various types of seminars at places who would like for me to come, whether it be for search and rescue teams or for businesses. Like in June, we will be down in Louisville doing a human remains detection seminar on June 5th and 6th. I also have done in the past for the search and rescue teams portal labs with North Star International, and also down in Texas at a conference that they had down there. These are basically to introduce everybody to portal, and so that we can kind of bridge the gap between the types of trainers that are out there, so we can understand how behavior works in an atmosphere that is non-confrontational, and we can kind of build upon those things so we can help serve the communities better as well.
Could you, maybe for listeners who don't know, could you maybe just describe a little bit how Portal works?
Portal is a tabletop game where you have objects and you have a trainer and a learner, and the trainer is to teach certain things without verbal communication. They will use a clicker to mark the behaviors that they desire for the outcomes that they are looking for, whether it is to just touch a certain color or to touch an object that is higher or an object that is lower, whatever they have designated to be trained. And then they can build upon that if they would like to incorporate. One of the things I do in search and rescue is I incorporate the 3 behaviors: the search, the locate, and the report behavior, all into a training plan a little bit at a time until we get a final behavior. I also utilize Portal with private clients and also in classes that I've done. What I have found when I introduced it in classes back in 2015 was brought everybody in without dogs the first week, and their clicker skills and the way the classes progressed from that point were a lot quicker and a lot better. The average pet owner was able to understand exactly what types of training plans and how they were being implemented, all from just doing these sorts of sessions. One thing nice about doing it with private clients is that you can get very creative in teaching the other aspects of it, of that being using the word no instead of a clicker for clicking, using the word no to mark behaviors you don't want, to show how difficult it is to train the opposite side. And I have found that to be another avenue of being very reinforcing for me, for them to go, I see why it's so much easier to use markers in training just based on one little exercise.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that the use of Portal with pet dog people is a really cool application of the game. I think a lot of trainers I know sometimes do an orientation where maybe with group classes and things where maybe they play like the traditional shaping game where you just have somebody kind of pick something random in the room to do and then try to shape the person with a clicker to do it. But it seems like using a game like Portal that has a little bit more direction and planning and a lot more objects kind of involved and concepts. You can use it to train things like duration and things like that. It seems like that could be a really useful thing to do with pet dog people. Did you find that the people enjoyed playing? And it looks like you're trying to say something else too. So jump in with whatever you're trying to say as well.
Well, you just brought to light with the things that you've said that, yes, I found that people enjoy. I've not found anybody that doesn't enjoy the game. Everybody that I've worked with does enjoy it. One of the things that, as you talked about, the concepts and things of that nature, one of the things I like for people to see is the use of extinction. And the learner always goes, wow, I put my dog through that. And it's definitely an eye-opener on seeing how things develop as you go through the different types of learning applications and building upon those.
Yes. Well, thank you again for sharing all of that. And I think our time here is about to wrap up. But before we do wrap up, I wondered if you wanted to share just a little bit more about that upcoming seminar that you have coming up, who all is putting that on, or that you're going to have the human remains detection thing that you have coming up. This may come out before that or right around the same time as that. So just in case folks have time to get in on it when they hear this, maybe tell them a little bit about what it is and where they can find out more about it.
Absolutely. ATA's Terry Van Hook has a facility in Louisville. It's Competitive Edge Agility in Louisville. And she has invited us, the Hoosier State Search and Rescue Team, to come down and put on a seminar on human remains detection. The people involved will be Connie Swain and Jimmy Maxwell, Emily Chester, and myself. And we'll be speaking. We'll be covering all the aspects of the human remains detection, even on body decomposition and things like that, to help build an awareness of what goes into search and rescue, but mainly for crossover training for those who do nose work or hunting or anything along those lines, that they'll have something else that they can build upon tool-wise as far as putting tools in their toolkit for training. As far as going into search and rescue, then, there's certain avenues that they need to go through first, whether not just going to this seminar won't put them in a position to go out and search for people in cases and stuff, but it will give them an eye-opener to the avenues and the areas that needed to be developed before you can do those certain things, because we will cover how to get into search and rescue at the end of the seminar.
Oh, Okay, thank you. And for folks who want to keep up with what you're doing or maybe want to chat with you a little bit more after the episode, what's the best way for folks to keep up with what you're doing or get in touch with you?
Probably the best way would be through email, shock7388 at sbcglobal.net. You can Facebook me, Facebook message me. That's another good way to do it as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David. And thank you for sharing everything that you have shared with us today. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me again. And look forward to chatting with you more in the future. So from myself and on behalf of everybody listening today, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Ryan, and thank you to the ATA community. You're awesome. I'm glad to be a part of it.
We do, of course, appreciate all of you tuning in as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and are interested in carrying on the conversation about working with the animals in our lives in the most positive, most fun, and most choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.atamember.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.